Hello and welcome to the Bonsai Garden. I've got here with me 3 beautiful Yamadori collected silver birch trees that I was kindly gifted by Tony of Tony's Bonsai. Now if you'd like to learn all about silver birch as a bonsai subject and you'd like to see what my plans are to turn these into spectacular bonsai trees, then keep watching. Birch is a fast-growing pioneer tree because it's tolerant to all sorts of different soils and because it has a small winged seed that forms inside catkins that can be carried on the wing. It's often one of the first trees to get established. As you can see here from an example that has seeded itself into the flower bed in my front garden, this tree is actually only a year old, but you can see it's quite a fast-growing tree and the trunk is already about a centimetre thick, and it's about 4 foot high. Birch trees belong to the genus Betula and are known for their graceful appearance, distinctive bark and delicate foliage. They're popular trees in many regions of the world and have both aesthetic and practical uses. Here's some key information about birch trees. The birch genus comprises about 60 to 70 different species, distributed throughout the northern hemisphere. Some commonly known birch species include the silver birch, Betula pendula, paper birch, Betula papyrifera, river birch, Betula nigra, and yellow birch, Betula alleganiensis. One of the most notable features of birch trees is their bark. Birch bark is often white or light coloured, and in some species it peels off in thin, papery layers. This unique characteristic gives birch trees a distinct appearance and makes them highly valued for decorative purposes. Birch trees have simple, alternate leaves that are typically small to medium in size. The leaves are generally serrated and have a triangular or ovate shape. They emerge in spring and provide a lush green canopy during the growing season. In autumn, the leaves of many birch species turn vibrant yellow or golden, adding to the tree's aesthetic appeal. Birch trees exhibit a wide range of sizes and growth habits. Some species, like the silver birch, can reach heights of 50 to 80 feet, while others, such as the dwarf birch, Betula nana, are much smaller, growing only a few feet tall. Birch trees can have an upright columnar form, or a more spreading, open habit. Birch trees are generally hardy and adaptive. They prefer well-drained soil and thrive in locations with ample sunlight. Most birch species are well suited for temperate climates, but can also tolerate colder regions. Birch trees are beloved for their aesthetic appeal, versatility and ecological importance, whether in forests, parks, landscapes, or indeed bonsai. They bring a touch of elegance and natural beauty to the surroundings. This lovely little tree is one of my favourites, a little sumo trunk silver birch bonsai, and it's a tree which I bought from the show at Markham Grange in Doncaster in February of this year. And it's a small tree, and I'm just really developing ramification and more branching and twigginess of this tree. It's got a uro or deadwood feature or hollow in the trunk at the front here, and I treated that with super glue to harden the wood and prevent that from rotting, and just channeled out the front here so that water will run through and out of there. And I'm just now developing the branching on this and try and get more twigginess on that. I'm certainly not looking to make that tree any taller, and this is one of the favourite trees in my collection at the moment. And this composition was inspired by the 2 videos that Nigel Saunders and his friend Jonathan Arison did on putting together a silver birch forest. And if you haven't seen them, they're definitely worth checking out. I'll put the link in the description below. This is the single largest pot in my collection, and my silver birch forest, which I put together about 3 years ago now. And this was put together from young saplings which I bought off the internet. They're supported on a bamboo framework in the pot just to hold them in place. And I have a tree just in here, which is a new tree, and that replaced a tree which unfortunately died off in the composition. And you can see I've cut a wedge shape out of the pot in spring of this year and put this replacement tree in. I've done a trunk chop at the top here, and what I'm hoping to do is get branching out the side, which you can see is now developing. That will become a new leader, and it will take this part of the tree off, and in time this will catch up with the other trees in the composition. You can see this is growing healthy and vigorously, and the regular maintenance I'm conducting on this tree is just really taking out the growing tips to encourage the buds further back to branch out and form into branches and create more branching and twigginess on these trees. And that way I'm just going to develop a denser canopy. When it comes to pruning birch, don't prune them until after the first flush has hardened off. After that, vigorous growth can be trimmed back throughout the growing season. You want to allow the tree the opportunity to recoup the energy that it's spent on putting out new leaves. This tree is my Bachelor Utilis Wakehurst Place, or chocolate birch. You can see it's got a lovely thick trunk at the base, lots of nice taper, and it has a typical sort of birch growth habit. And what I'm trying to do now is create a weeping appearance in the tips of these branches, and you can see I've started placing wire on to give me that effect. Wakehurst Place chocolate birch is one of the darkest birches available, and you can see it has a lovely dark chocolate coloured bark, and already we're getting the white striations in that bark, and also that's beginning to peel a bit, which is what gives the tree more of a mature look. And all I'm doing with this tree, taking it forward, is just add more wire onto these branches and just give it that subtle downward twist to the tips of any new growth. So we've got more of a weeping canopy. And again, I'm going around and just taking off the growing tips of any new growth to cause the buds further back to activate and develop into new branches, just to give me a denser canopy. And this tree is planted in its just amazing, most beautiful pot with subtle hues in the glaze by one of my favourite potters, Tom Butterworth. I don't know if you can see, as I turn the pot, you get hints of gold and greens and browns in that glaze. Just a really, really striking, beautiful pot. Just before I get to styling Tony's birch trees, I need for you to hit the like button to show your appreciation, and also you might want to consider subscribing to be notified of future videos. Now let's have a look at those trees. My proposed plan with this tree is very similar to my chocolate birch. I'm going to just snip off the ends of this extending growth, and what I'm hoping that will do is that will encourage the dormant buds further back to start developing into branches. That will help increase the ramification on the branches. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting wire onto these branches and start placing them and giving them more of a weeping aspect on the tree. So let's get to that. Got an upward growing branch here, so I'm just taking that out. And I'm just shortening the length of some of these branches because I'm expecting that the new growth will develop out quite quickly anyway. The next job is to get wire on everything and just start wiring everything with a slight weeping motion. I've got a couple of branches here, this one in particular, that I just want to move this way a little bit, just bring this round into this space. So I'm going to get some wire on there. When you're working on your trees, I would suggest that you should be working with purpose. By which I mean, know what action you're trying to perform on the tree, know what you're trying to achieve, and know when to perform that action. You're effectively working with the end in mind. So here is the finished tree, blue wire. See, it's now got a weeping aspect to it. And I just need to now leave this to let those branches set into place and develop more ramification and build on that canopy density. This second tree is a really lovely twin trunk silver birch, and you see it's got lovely white bark on it. However, I think of the three trees, this is probably the least healthy. And you can see that although it's got some really super small leaf foliage on it, the foliage is quite sparse. Now, I believe this tree was collected probably in April of this year. One of the issues that I think we have is that perhaps the roots down here are not as strong and as healthy as we might like. So what does that mean in terms of development of this tree? Well, I think first of all, the finished tree probably needs to be about half the height of this tree, and you can see that it has grown up to quite some height. What that means is that the ultimate design of this probably needs for it to be cut down quite significantly, perhaps a foot, foot and a half. But sometimes the best plan for a tree is to do nothing, and I think that's the case with this particular tree. And what I mean by that is that I think the tree just needs to be left to develop and gain some health. So between now and next spring, I'm planning on just leaving this tree as is. I may feed it up, try and get some more foliage on here, but I need for it to develop as much foliage and as much health as possible, so that in spring what I can do is some quite serious chops on here. And my experience of birch is that you can cut them back quite hard in spring and they'll put out lots of new foliage, provided the tree is healthy, and that's the concern here. I need to get the roots healthy, I need to give the tree as much energy as possible to survive winter and to flush out in spring. And before it does that in spring, I'll cut back probably about a foot, foot and a half on most of these branches to bring the height down quite radically. Of the three trees, I think this one is by far the most problematic. It's got quite a thick base to it and some nice colour to the bark, but it's a bit of an unusual shape and it has quite a sharp bend in the trunk at this point. There's also another low branch coming out to the side here, which almost suggests a twin trunk. And looking at this tree, I can't immediately see the design in there. However, it has got a lot of fresh growth on there, and these leaves are quite a bit larger than those on the other two trees that I've worked on. And I think sometimes if you can't see the way forward, what you need to do is reduce the problems in the tree, and it's more of a matter of incremental improvements. So what I've got here is I've got a number of branches that are growing in the wrong direction, growing back towards the centre of the tree. I've got quite a lot of extending growth which isn't required on there. So I think the first thing to do is to reduce that back, so I can at least see the tree and then start to make an informed decision about what I'm actually going to do with that. There is no reason to rush things with bonsai. It's obviously a slow, purposeful hobby. And so what we can do is we can reduce this back, remove any obvious problems, but then we can always take that forward, give some thought to the design, and do something with that at a later stage. So what I'm going to do at the moment then is I'm just going to get in here and reduce down some of this foliage to get a better, clearer idea of the structure of the tree. So I'm just going around the tree and cutting back the extending growth, removing anything that's growing back towards the centre of the trunk, anything growing straight up, anything growing straight down, dead branches, and I'm also removing crotch growth where any new growth is in a fork between two branches. After that, I'm now doing a bit of wiring on the tree and repositioning some of the branches and giving them more of a sort of downward growth. And here's the final tree. It's by no means finished, but I have removed some of the potential issues for the future, and it's all about incremental improvements in the tree. Birch are renowned for letting branches die suddenly for no apparent reason. The tree has adapted to surviving damage to branches by simply excising or rejecting those limbs, meaning that if any damage is sustained before the onset of winter, these branches will likely be lost due to dieback. With birch, it's always worth bearing in mind that a sudden loss of branches might need to lead to a radical rethink in styling. If you enjoyed this video, why not hit the like button and subscribe to be notified of future videos. And what did you think of my styling decisions on these trees? Let me know in the comments, and also share your experience of silver birch bonsai trees. Thanks for watching.